And former FBI Director James Comey has released a 7-page statement ahead of his testimony at the Senate Intelligence Committee on Thursday. In it, he says President Donald Trump asked for his loyalty and questioned him over the Bureau's investigations into his campaign's ties to Russia. For more on what Comey's revelations mean for the Trump administration, I'm joined by Peter Mathews. He's a professor of political science at Cypress College in Los Angeles, California. Good to speak to you. What did you make of Comey's statement? Do we see that loyalty to Trump, or does it come as a surprise to you?
I've read the statement in its entirety, and it's quite astounding because, according to Comey, President Trump actually met with him at a dinner, private dinner in the White House, and demanded that he be loyal. First, he said to James Comey, "Do you want to keep your job as the FBI director? And also, I need loyalty." He said, "I need loyalty." And Comey said, "I will give you honesty." And Trump said, "Well, honest loyalty." So the question is, was that obstruction of justice? Because he was asking him to drop the Flynn investigation, which was a legal procedure to try to find out whether there was any kind of crime committed. And that could be considered obstruction of justice for corrupt purposes, because what was implied there was the president was asking Comey to be loyal above and beyond anything else, including where the law might lead him. And secondly, at a second meeting on February 14th, after a counterterrorism meeting with a lot of officials, the president asked everyone to leave the room and kept Director Comey in the room, and once again brought up the Mike Flynn investigation and asked him to please let the investigation go. So what was the purpose that he did this, that the president did this? Was it a corrupt purpose? Was it for his own benefit? If that's the case, it could very well be construed as obstruction of justice. I think it refocuses the investigation, especially in the Congress, especially in the House and Senate, onto the obstruction of justice charge, as opposed to the other charges which were investigating whether or not there was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. It changes the focus quite a bit.
And Peter, as you mentioned, considering that it comes only from the key meetings where only the two men were actually present, how much trust can Comey deliver when he testifies later on today? Does he hold that reputation?
He does to an extent, because he's been through a lot of ups and downs in the last year or so, as you know, and he's stuck to his guns. He hasn't waffled or wavered, and with all the controversy, and he's also had a reputation of being a very straight shooter, nonpartisan, objective. Now let's see what happens, because his credibility, it's between who's more credible, the president or James Comey? That's what it boils down to. I think there's a good chance that the public will see James Comey as more credible. We'll have to see what happens after tomorrow's testimony, because everything then will result in the afternoon after the private testimony. Don't forget, Comey will also have a private testimony right in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee without the public hearing. The public hearing is in the morning. The testimony for the public to hear is in the morning from 10 o'clock to, 7 o'clock in the morning to onward, Pacific time. But in the afternoon, there's this private testimony that the Senate Intelligence Committee will be hearing. And depends what's said there as well as to how this will result. But Comey does have a lot of credibility. And the public, by the way, is so enthralled with this. All the major networks here, ABC, NBC, CNN, they're all carrying it live tomorrow. Very unusual since the last time this happened was during the Watergate hearings. Very interesting. And
is this all heading into a legal minefield for Trump?
I think it certainly is. He's not out of the woods yet, and it very well could be a legal minefield. And there's certain reports that he's actually hired some lawyers, or he's trying to hire lawyers to defend him in case he needs that kind of defense. And don't forget, impeachment is really, if the charge of impeachment comes forward based on obstruction of justice, it begins in the House of Representatives and then goes to the Senate. If the House votes by a majority vote to impeach the president, giving the obstruction of justice charges, then it goes on to the Senate for trial, and the U.S. Senate serves as a trial jury and decides whether or not to convict the president and remove him or keep him in office. Only two presidents have been impeached before in history, Bill Clinton and over 100 years ago, Andrew Johnson, and neither one of them was removed. They were impeached but not removed, so it'll be interesting to see how this goes. It all hinges on this obstruction of justice possibility of charge. That's what I think.
Thank you very much for joining us here on TRT World. Peter Mathews, there, Professor of Political Science at Cypress College in Los Angeles.